The playground looked bright and cheerful to everyone else, but to the CEO, it felt like a place where her hopes slowly disappeared every day. She walked in, holding her small daughter close to her chest, the child's face resting on her shoulder. In silence, people recognized the CEO from the city news, from business magazines, from conferences where she spoke with confidence and power. But here in this playground, she was only a tired mother who had run out of answers. Her daughter hadn't spoken a single word in years, not even a sound. And every doctor she visited had given her the same tired explanation. She needs time, they said. She will talk when she feels safe. The mother tried everything's therapy. Private teachers, special toys, but nothing seemed to work. Today felt no different. She gently set her daughter down on the soft sand, but the girl sat without looking at anyone. Once she only watched the grains of sand slip between her small fingers, like she was watching the world from far away. The CEO sat on a nearby bench, her eyes following the child's every move. Her heart squeezed every time she remembered the day her daughter stopped talking. She was only 3 years old, and the world had just become too loud for her. The CEO had been working late nights back then, traveling for meetings, leaving her daughter with babysitters. She blamed herself for not being there enough and wondered if the silence was her punishment. She tried to smile when other kids ran around the playground laughing loudly. She wished her daughter could join them, but the little girl always stayed on the edges, drawing shapes in the sand, never lifting her head. Other mothers watched from a distance, whispering in curiosity. They wondered why a powerful woman like her looked so fragile. Some tried talking to her daughter before, but the girl never even blinked in response. Today, the CEO told herself she would try to be patient. She breathed deeply and closed her eyes for a moment, but her rest was interrupted when she heard soft footsteps behind her. She opened her eyes and saw a black single father walking into the playground holding his young son's hand. The father's presence was calm and warm. He had tired eyes, yet they carried a gentle strength, the kind that came from facing hard days with courage. His son ran to the swings laughing brightly, and the father followed with a soft smile. The CEO tried not to stare, but something about him made her look again. Maybe it was the way he knelt down to tie his son's shoe without rushing, or the way he watched the boy like he was the most precious thing in the world. It was a look the CEO recognized, a look she had lost somewhere in the middle of business. Meetings, deadlines, and lonely nights. Her daughter lifted her head slightly to see the boy running, but quickly looked back down as, reminding herself that she didn't belong with loud children. The father noticed the silent girl sitting alone. His eyes softened immediately, without thinking too much. He gave her a small nod and a gentle smile, then looked away so she wouldn't feel pressured. The CEO felt her heartbeat quicken. Didn't want strangers approaching her daughter. Too many people tried before, and every time her daughter shut down even more. But something about this father felt different. He didn't stare too long. He didn't judge, didn't whisper, like the others. He simply acknowledged the little girl's presence with respect. As the boy played, the father looked around for a place to sit. Every bench was full except the one near the CEO. He walked toward it and stopped a few steps away.
Do you mind?
"If I sit?" he asked quietly. His voice was warm, not too loud, not too soft. The CEO hesitated but nodded. Sure. The father sat at the far end of the bench, giving her space. Unlike others, he didn't immediately ask questions. He didn't comment on the girl's silence. He didn't give her curious looks, just sat there watching his son play with pride. The silence between them felt strangely comfortable. The CEO stole a glance at him. Seemed like a man who had gone through a lot, but still carried kindness like a shield. After a few minutes, he noticed the girl again. Circles in the sand, her small hands shaking slightly. He leaned forward a little, not enough to make her nervous, but enough to let her know he saw her. "She's very focused," he said softly. The CEO sighed. "She's quiet. Very quiet." The father nodded gently. "Quiet isn't a bad thing," he said. "Sometimes silence has its own story." The CEO looked at him in surprise. She wasn't used to people understanding so easily. He didn't look shocked or confused. He looked understanding. Something inside her softened. The girl suddenly lifted her head and looked at the father for a moment. It was quick, just a second, but it was something. The father smiled again, slow and warm, then looked away so she wouldn't feel afraid. The CEO froze. Her daughter never looked at strangers, not even once. And yet today she did. Something was different. Something was beginning. And the CEO had no idea that this quiet moment was the doorway to the biggest miracle of her life. Asterisk, the CEO sat stiffly on the bench watching the father from the corner of her eye, wondering what made her daughter look at him when she had ignored everyone else for years. The little girl sat in the sand quietly, but there was something different about her posture now, something softer, something curious. The father didn't rush toward her or call her name like others had tried before. Instead, he let the moment breathe. After a while, he stood up slowly and walked to a patch of sand a few feet away from the girl. Close enough for her to see what he was doing, but far enough not to scare her. He knelt down, picked up a small stick, and began drawing gentle shapes, circles, stars, tiny flowers. He didn't look at her while drawing. A small detail made his actions feel safe, not demanding. The CEO found herself leaning forward, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She watched her daughter glance at the father's drawings, her eyes following the motion of the stick. The girl put down her own stick and pushed a line of sand with her finger, as if trying to copy him. The father smiled quietly to himself, but didn't turn his head. Instead, he drew a smiley face, simple and cute. The girl blinked at it. She reached out her hand and erased the smiley face with one swipe, then drew her own version, a smaller, uneven smiley face, but it was hers. The father looked at it and let out a soft, happy laugh. "That's better than mine," he said gently. The CEO felt her throat tighten. Her daughter had reacted. She had responded. She had never wanted to make a connection before. The father's son ran over to his dad, holding a small toy robot. "Dad, look," the boy said proudly. The father admired it, then glanced back at the girl. He whispered to his son, who nodded excitement. The boy approached the girl slowly, holding the toy out in both hands. The girl froze, panic appearing on her face. She almost pulled back. But the boy stopped a safe distance away and gently placed the toy on the sand instead of handing it to her. He stepped back and smiled, showing he wasn't forcing her to take it. The girl stared at the robot for a long moment. Her small fingers trembled, then slowly she picked it up. The CEO covered her mouth with her hand. Daughter had accepted something from another child? It was almost unbelievable. The father watched his son with pride, then looked at the girl and spoke softly. "He wants you to have it for a while," he said. "You can play with it if you want." The girl hugged the toy to her chest like it was something precious. The CEO felt tears in her eyes that she quickly wiped away. She didn't want to break the moment. The father leaned back on his hands, looking at the sky as if thinking about something. Then he began humming a soft tune. It was gentle, slow, warm like a lullaby someone would sing to a frightened child. The sound floated in the air like a soft breeze. The girl's head snapped up instantly. Her eyes widened. She looked at the father and then at the toy, almost as if trying to understand something inside herself. The CEO stood up slowly, her heart pounding, and she had never seen her daughter react like this. Not to music, not to anything. The father continued humming, not looking at the girl, giving her space to process the sound. The girl lifted her hands to her ears, not to block the sound, but as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her eyes filled with tears. Lips trembled. Tiny sound escaped her throat like a breath trying to form a word. The CEO gasped. The father immediately slowed his humming, making it softer, softer, like he was guiding her through the moment. The girl opened her mouth again. A shaky, broken sound came out. It was not clear, not strong, but it was a sound. Her first sound in years. The playground suddenly felt silent, as if the world had stopped moving. The father lowered his humming, then gently said, "It's okay. You're doing great." His voice was soft enough to not frighten her, but strong enough to let her know she was safe. The girl tried again. This time the sound was a little louder, a little clearer, as if she was following the melody he had given her. The CEO took a step forward, tears falling silently down her cheeks. Her daughter was trying to speak. The little girl looked at the father with trust and confusion, like she didn't understand what was happening inside her but felt safe with him guiding her. The father offered her a small nod of encouragement. Something inside her broke open. She tried one more time, her lips trembling, and a tiny whispered sound finally escaped. It wasn't a full word yet, but it was a beginning, and it changed everything. Asterisk, the CEO stood frozen as the tiny sound slipped from her daughter's lips. It was so soft she almost thought she imagined it, but the father heard it too. He didn't move fast or show surprise. Instead, he lowered his head slightly, meeting the girl's eyes with calm warmth. The same warmth that had been guiding her little heart from the moment he knelt in the sand. The girl breathed shakily, still clutching the toy robot, her chest rising and falling in uneven waves. She looked frightened not of the father, but of herself, as if the unfamiliar sound coming from her own mouth confused her. The father slowly extended his hand, not to touch her, but to give her something steady to focus on. "You're safe," he whispered gently. "It's okay to try again." His voice was a soft invitation. The little girl stared at him, her eyes big and wet, and then she glanced at her mother. The CEO felt her knees weaken. She had waited years for her daughter to look at her with anything other than silence. She knelt down slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling, "Mom is here." The girl looked back and forth between her mother and the single father, like her small mind was trying to decide who she felt braver with. Then the father hummed again, just one short, gentle note. The girl gasped softly and tried to copy the sound. This time her voice cracked, but it was louder than before. The CEO covered her mouth with both hands, tears pouring as she struggled not to sob and frighten the child. The father gave the girl a nod of encouragement again. "Just a little more," he said softly. "Only if you want to." The girl swallowed hard, gathering courage the way a small bird gathers air before taking its first flight. She opened her mouth, pushed a tiny breath out, and then finally she shaped her lips into a word. "Hi." The sound was shaky, thin, broken, but it was real, a real word, her first in years. The CEO fell to her knees in the sand, sobbing openly now. She reached out, but didn't dare touch the girl, afraid she might stop the miracle. The girl stared at her mother, uncertain, then repeated, "Hi." This time the word was clearer, as if speaking it again made it stronger inside her. The father looked away for a moment, blinking back tears of his own. He wasn't trying to take credit for anything. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was simply a man who understood children better than most people ever would. The CEO finally gathered the courage to reach forward. She placed her hands gently on her daughter's arms. "You spoke," she whispered, with a trembling smile. "Baby, you spoke." The girl leaned into her mother, shaking, overwhelmed with emotions she didn't know how to express. The father dusted the sand off his hands and stood up quietly, giving the two space. He didn't want to make it seem like he was waiting for praise. He simply stepped back and watched the moment with humble, quiet pride. The CEO looked up at him, tears streaking her cheeks. How did you do that?" she managed to ask. The father gave a small, sad smile. "My wife was a child therapist," he said softly. "She taught me how to reach kids who were afraid. To speak, our son struggled a lot when he was small." The CEO's heart tightened as she listened. The pain behind his smile was gentle but deep. "Your wife," she whispered. "She passed," he said quietly. "A few years ago." The CEO bowed her head in respect and gratitude. "She would be proud," she said. The father nodded softly, his eyes shining. His son ran over and hugged his leg, excitedly telling him how the girl liked the robot. The father smiled and ruffled his son's hair. The CEO wiped her tears and gently guided her daughter toward the father. The girl still held the robot tightly, as if it had given her strength. The father knelt down again, keeping his voice soft. "You did something very brave today," he told her. The little girl hesitated. Then so softly it almost vanished in the wind she whispered, "Thank you." The CEO burst into fresh tears. The father placed a hand over his heart, honored by her effort. As the sun began to set, bathing The playground in warm gold, the CEO invited the father and his son for ice cream. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. This gentle man had changed her daughter's life and hers in a single afternoon, and from that moment on, their lives would never be the same again.